Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep, really deep into the world of plants.
That's right. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we're diving into chapter 2 from, well, let's just say it's from a book that'll change how you see plants, like completely.
It's really something. This chapter starts by painting this incredible picture of all these photons from the sun, those little packets of energy
Right.
raining down on Earth nonstop. It's like a constant barrage of energy. And guess what? Plants have figured out how to capture that energy.
So, okay, that's cool, but how does that energy, actually affect me, you know?
Well, think about it. Every cell in your body, every thought, every heartbeat, it all traces back to the energy that plants capture from the sun. Photosynthesis, remember?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Photosynthesis. It's all coming back to me now from, middle school science class.
Exactly. And that salad you ate for lunch? Pure sunlight energy, transformed by plants into fuel for your body.
Wow. Okay, so maybe I was paying attention back then.
And the coolest part is this chapter dives deep into how plants actually pull this off. Like billions of years ago, there was this single-celled algae that basically swallowed up a bacteria, a cyanobacteria to be precise. And this created a totally new type of organism, a chimera, they call it, that could do this amazing thing, photosynthesize.
So all the plants we see today, they're all descended from that one ancient event.
Yep. Pretty wild.
It really is. It's like every leaf and every blade of grass has this incredible history built into it.
Yeah.
So it's not just about pretty flowers or, shade trees. This chapter really drives home how essential plants are for all life on Earth.
Absolutely. And get this, the chapter points out that plants actually make up a whopping 80% of all the living matter on the planet.
80%? Seriously?
Yeah. That's more than all the animals, all the insects, everything combined. And they're just out there quietly doing their thing, powering life as we know it. But this chapter, it goes way beyond the basics, Yeah. It dives into some of the crazy challenges and adaptations that plants have developed over, millions of years of evolution.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Well, picture this. You've got this tiny seed, right? And it lands on this remote island like Kauai in Hawaii.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And it has to adapt to this whole new world. Fewer predators, different climate, you name it. So the plants on these islands, they evolved in some really unique ways.
It makes sense. It's like isolation breeds innovation.
Exactly. And then we meet this botanist, Steve Perlman, who's dedicated his life to saving these rare island plants.
So he's like a plant whisperer.
Kinda. He's out there rappelling down cliffs to hand-pollinate endangered species like the Vulcan palm.
Whoa, hold on. Hand pollinating. Why can't they, pollinate themselves?
Well, the Vulcan palm, see, it's super specialized. It relies on just one type of moth to pollinate it, and if that moth disappears, the whole species is in trouble.
Wow, so this guy is literally saving entire plant species from extinction. Talk about dedication.
Right, he's like a plant superhero. But then the chapter shifts gears and takes us back to the mainland, where plants face a whole different kind of challenge.
So less island paradise, more like survival of the fittest.
Exactly. It's a constant battle against all sorts of hungry herbivores, So plants on the mainland, they've had to evolve this arsenal of defense mechanisms.
Like what? Give me the dirt. I mean, the plant details.
Okay, get this. Thorns, obviously, those are classic. But then you've got stinging hairs, sticky sap, and even chemical weapons. These plants are producing all sorts of crazy compounds to deter anything that wants to take a bite.
Whoa. So it's like chemical warfare, plant style? Who knew they were such fighters? This chapter really makes you realize that plants aren't just sitting there passively.
Not at all. They're actively defending themselves, and it's super clever how they've adapted to survive.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I do have a question.
Yep.
If plants on the mainland are so good at protecting themselves, why did the plants on Kauai, lose those defenses?
Good question. Well, the chapter explains that when you don't need those defenses anymore, like on an island with fewer predators, it actually takes energy to keep producing them. So the plants on Kauai, they basically traded protection for efficiency.
That's fascinating. It's like a cost-benefit analysis, plant style.
Exactly. But it does make them super vulnerable if new threats like invasive species suddenly show up.
Yikes. It's just like they let their guard down, and now they're paying the price.
That's a great transition to the next part of our conversation, where we'll explore how plants interact with each other and their environment.
Absolutely. There's so much more to uncover.
So we've talked about plants defending themselves, right, against bugs and animals and stuff.
Right.
But I'm curious about, how they interact with each other. Are plants just out there on their own, or is there a whole social scene happening that we're not aware of?
That's a great question. And actually, there's a whole world of plant communication going on beneath the surface. Wait, hold up. Plants actually talk to each other? I always thought that was just like a hippie idea.
Well, they don't exactly have vocal cords or anything, but they do communicate through this incredible underground network.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's made up of these tiny fungi called microcae that connect the roots of plants together.
So like a giant underground plant internet.
Exactly. And through this network, plants can share all sorts of information.
Like what? Spill the tea? What are they gossiping about down there?
Not quite gossip, but they can send out warnings if they're being attacked by pests, for example.
So it's like a neighborhood watch, but for plants.
Exactly. And it's not just about defense. They can also share resources like nutrients and water through this network.
Wow, that's incredible. So they're not just competing for resources, they're actually helping each other out.
Yep. It's a whole interconnected community down there.
It really changes how you think about a forest, doesn't it? It's like this whole cooperative society.
It really does. And get this, they can also communicate through the air.
Really? How do they like send out smoke signals or something?
Not exactly. They release these chemicals called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs.
VOCs. Sounds kind of technical.
It is, but basically these VOCs act like plant perfume, carrying messages to other plants.
So they can like warn each other about danger that way too.
Exactly. And they can even attract pollinators with specific scents.
Wow, it's a whole secret language. It's like they have their own social media or something.
Kind of, but all this communication makes you wonder, right? Can plants actually learn and remember things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they don't have brains, do they?
Well, not brains like ours, but they do have a way of storing information through something called epigenetic modifications.
Epigenetic modifications.
Yeah.
Come again.
Think of it like adding notes to their DNA based on their experiences.
So like highlighting the important parts of their genetic instruction manual.
Exactly. And these notes can even be passed down to their offspring.
Well, hold on. So like a plant that survived a drought could pass that knowledge on to its kids.
Yeah.
It's like a form of genetic memory.
That's mind-blowing. But wait, there's more, right? Didn't you say something about plants learning to ignore stuff?
Ah, yes. Habituation. It's basically learning to tune out stimuli that aren't actually a threat.
So, like, if you keep poking a sensitive plant, it eventually stops reacting.
Exactly. It learns that the touch isn't dangerous.
So they're not just reacting blindly, they're actually learning and adapting their behavior. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And there's even evidence that they can learn patterns and solve problems.
Wait, hold up. Plants solving problems. Now I know you're messing with me.
I'm serious. There was this study where researchers trained bean plants to grow towards a light source, even when they kept moving it.
So the plants were like figuring the trick.
Exactly. They were essentially problem solving to get the light they needed.
That's insane. Okay, you've officially convinced me that plants are way smarter than we give them credit for.
Glad to hear it. But it raises an even bigger question, doesn't it? If they can do all this, could plants actually be conscious? Ooh, now that's a tough one. I mean, how do you even measure something like plant consciousness?
It's definitely a tricky question, and there's no easy answer. But some scientists believe that plants might have a basic form of awareness.
Honestly, after everything we've learned today, it doesn't seem that far-fetched anymore.
Right. It really challenges us to expand our definition of intelligence and acknowledge that there are many ways of being in the world.
Totally. But speaking of intelligence, I'm curious about this term I keep hearing, plant neurobiology. What's that all about?
Ah, yes. Plant neurobiology. It's a fascinating and somewhat controversial field.
Controversial. Why is that?
Well, because plants don't have brains in the traditional sense.
Right.
But they do have these specialized cells that can transmit electrical signals, kind of like neurons in our brains.
So even without a brain, they have their own internal communication system.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that they use many of the same neurotransmitters as animals, like dopamine and serotonin.
Hey, serotonin. Like the happy chemical. What are plants doing with serotonin?
That's a great question, and we're still figuring it out.
Makes you wonder what's going on inside those leafy heads of theirs.
It really does. But the presence of these familiar neurotransmitters suggests a deep evolutionary connection between plants and animals.
So even though we diverged billions of years ago, we're still using some of the same basic tools for communication.
Exactly, and it's challenging our assumptions about what it means to be intelligent.
I love that. But I can see why some scientists might be hesitant about the term plant neurobiology. It's kind of like we're imposing our own human-centric view on them.
That's a valid point. But I think the researchers in this field are just trying to highlight the amazing similarities between plant and animal signaling systems. It's about expanding our understanding of intelligence, not reducing plants to something they're not.
That makes sense. So even if the terminology is debated, the research itself is really pushing the boundaries of what we know about plants.
Absolutely. And it's an exciting time to be studying plant intelligence, that's for sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
But with all this new knowledge comes a new responsibility, right? Like if plants are more complex and aware than we thought, how should that change our relationship with them?
That's a profound question, and it's one we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the ethical considerations of this new understanding and consider how we can move towards a more harmonious and respectful relationship with the plant world.
Wow. I mean, where do we even begin after all that? It's like my whole view of plants has been, I don't know, like turned upside down.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
It really is. I mean, to think that all this communication and cooperation and even like problem solving is going on all around us and we're just, oblivious to it. It's incredible.
It's a real paradigm shift, and as we learn more about plants, it makes you think, about how we treat them, how we interact with them. I mean, if they're more than just, passive things, does that change how we should act?
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it? Like, where do we go from here with all this new knowledge?
Right. Like, we've always kind of seen plants as, resources to be used, but what if we started thinking about them more as like partners, coexisting and maybe even collaborating with them?
I like that. It's like moving from a mindset of taking to a mindset of giving, or at least
Yeah.
like sharing.
Exactly. And it makes you rethink a lot of things, like agriculture, for example. If plants can experience stress, should we be factoring that into how we grow our food?
Yeah, and what about deforestation? I mean,
Mhm.
we learned about how connected trees are in a forest. So clearing out a whole forest, it's not just about losing trees, it's about like disrupting a whole community.
Exactly. And these are really tough questions, with no easy answers.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the fact that we're even asking these questions shows that something is shifting. We're starting to see the world from a less human-centric point of view. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, like we're finally waking up to the fact that we're not separate from nature, but a part of it. And plants are a huge part of that.
Absolutely. And this new understanding, it could actually help us solve some of the big problems we're facing, like climate change.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, think about it. Plants are like these natural climate regulators, right? They suck up carbon dioxide from the air.
Right, of course.
But if we keep destroying forests and, messing up ecosystems, we're making it harder for them to do their job.
So protecting plants and like restoring damaged ecosystems, that's actually a key part of tackling climate change.
Exactly. And then there's food security. We need to feed a growing population, but we need to do it in a way that doesn't destroy the planet.
That's a tough balance for sure.
It is. But maybe by understanding plants better, we can find ways to grow food that are both productive and sustainable.
Like what if we could use those mycorrhizal networks to like boost plant growth naturally? Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would. And it's already happening. There's this whole movement towards regenerative agriculture, which is all about working with nature, not against it.
That's so cool. It's like we're finally starting to get it.
Yeah.
That we're not the only ones with intelligence and like agency.
Right. And as we learn to appreciate the intelligence of plants, maybe we can learn to be more intelligent ourselves, in how we live on this planet.
I love that. So where do we go from here? Like what can we do as individuals to, make a difference?
Well, I think the first step is just being aware, right? Knowing that plants are more than just, decorations or resources. They're living beings with their own ways of being in the world.
Right.
And then we can start making choices that reflect that understanding.
So like being more mindful of the food we buy, supporting sustainable agriculture, things like that.
Exactly. And even just, appreciating the plants around us, taking the time to notice them, to learn their names.
Yeah, I love that. It's like building a relationship with the plant world.
Exactly. And who knows what amazing things we might discover along the way.
This has been an incredible conversation. I feel like my mind has been completely blown open.
Mine too.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of plants. We hope you've learned something new and that you'll continue to explore and appreciate the incredible diversity